Now to the latest GDP figures coming out of Europe. While the Eurozone recorded modest growth in the last quarter, there still are signs of strain for the EU's largest economy. Of course, that's Germany. And joining us now to discuss Europe's economy in more detail is Remi Piet. He's a senior partner at investment consulting firm Embellie Advisory. We want to welcome you to the show. What are some of the key figures that are jumping out at you as far as GDP numbers? I mean, countries that stand out, either good or bad.
I mean, it's quite interesting to see the latest figures, because obviously after years of relative stagnation, we're seeing some encouraging numbers in modest but still a relative growth of 0.3%. There is also encouraged by the relative success in quenching inflation down. When you compare the performance of European economies in reducing economy, and we're talking about 2.7 in the next few months, compared to the US, for example, this relative growth with the reduction of inflation is encouraging for a series of the economy. Now, you're making a very interesting point in terms of saying that each economy should be seen differently. We're seeing encouraging performance from the Mediterranean countries, Spain, Greece, Portugal, which usually are not the most performing in the Eurozone, have actually have a growth of 0.7, 0.6 for Spain, and for Italy. They actually are showing some capacities of reduction of unemployment locally also that are very encouraging. On the other side of the question, Germany is unfortunately disappointing in terms of the results, both because of uncertainty for sales towards China, especially in terms of large industrial equipment that Germany is good at exporting towards China, and also obviously the questions on the energy security questions, and the German economy was relying on the possibilities of cheap gas from Russia, and obviously there's been clear changes after the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, as long as you went there, I'd like to talk maybe a little bit more about Germany. As we look at the data, obviously it's not encouraging when it comes to Germany. Which sectors do you think are going to be hit the hardest as a result of all of this?
Well, there's clear discussion about decision on investment on the industrial level at the European level, also in terms of electric battery cars, automotive industries. But the question here is specifically on the capacity for the industry in Germany to switch from different sources of energy now and turning much more to LNG and natural gas from other sources of imports, and keep some kind of a competitive advantage in terms of its production costs. But Germany is also not being favored right now by the wave of positive numbers on the tourism industry that has favored Mediterranean economies. That also quite leads to the question of whether or not these economic numbers are slightly encouraging, are sustainable along the time, or we're just seeing a renewal of the tourism industry in the Mediterranean region that is fostered also by a relatively weak euro compared to the dollar.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in Greece just a couple of months ago, and it is funny to think about. It wasn't that long ago. All we talked about was Greece and austerity, and as you pointed out, Greece, Portugal, Spain not seen as heavy movers. Obviously, they're lifting things up somewhat. Another area that's seeing that as well is France. They just hosted the Olympics. It looks like they're going to get a major boost from that. What are your thoughts on that and the French economy going forward this year?
Just before Olympics, a French Minister of Economy posted some disappointing numbers in terms of deficit, specifically 5.5%, way higher than the objective. There's a question of worsening of the debt that is linked to somewhat to the Olympic Games and investment for a series of infrastructure that were needed. And actually, those Olympic Games were relatively inexpensive and quite favorable to the French economy, and the figures should actually be positive onto this. The French economy has remained quite attractive to foreign investment. When you look at the latest rankings of countries, especially in the Western Hemisphere, you see France as one of the first or second, depending on the year, in terms of capacity of attracting new source of investment because of a well-trained workforce, because of a series of reforms also that Macron has pushed forward, which made him popular. The question and worries about France is the political stability after the elections that you had before the Olympic Games. Despite the enthusiasm for the success of the event in summer, we're going to come back to the paralyzed Congress in France, where you don't see a clear majority, and it's unclear who's going to be the prime minister to lead or continue or change reforms or economic courses in one of the most important economy in Europe. And then there's discussion at the European level, very interesting in terms of investing in mineral supplies, in terms of new sources of energy, and large investment that could benefit a series of those economies.